So this is a commentary on the laws of England by William Blackstone, third edition from the 1700s, 1768. A female, also at 7 years of age, may be betrothed or given in marriage. At 9 is entitled to dowry. At 12 years of age of maturity, and therefore may consent or disagree to marriage. So they can be given at the age of 7, according to British law in the 1700s. And in this one in particular, this is a commentary on the laws of England, the 1800s. So we have to ask, why is it the age? What happened between then, in this book, where a female at the age of 7 could be betrothed, to today? Something happened to change the way we see this idea or this concept of childhood. With the whole age of Aisha radiallahu anha thing. So the most important thing that they need to ask here is, what is it that changed over the past 100 years to make this a controversy? Now, can you share my screen? No, it's just a really
I know.
Subject. Right. So this is a commentary on the laws of England by William Blackstone. Yeah, it's a really expensive book, right? But it's as it's suggested, it's a book on a commentary on the laws of England, third edition from the 1700s, 1768. Yeah. Now, what does it say? Right. So this is it in more detail. I think this is the laws of England, William Blackstone, in 4 books. I'm not sure of the date of publications on this one. So this is 1893 copy of the same book, yeah. And this is page 463, and it's on the rights of persons. And it says the following: let us consider the ward of person within age for whose assistance and support these guardians are constituted by law, or who it is that it is said to be within age. The ages of males and females are different for different purposes. A male at 12 years old can take an oath of allegiance. At 14 years of discretion, and therefore may consent or disagree to marriage, may choose his guardian, and if his discretion be actually proved, make his testament of his personal estate. At 17, may be an executor, blah, 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 so on and so forth. A female, also at 7 years of age, may be betrothed or given in marriage. At 9 is entitled to dowry. At 12 years of age of maturity, and therefore may consent or disagree to marriage. So they can be given at the age of 7, according to British law in the 1700s. And in this one in particular, this is a commentary on the laws of England at the 1800s. So
19th century.
Right. So now we have to ask, right? And this isn't, by the way, specific to English law. This is like, where did the current laws come from? Why is it that we say the age of 16 in the UK, or the age of 21 in Korea, or the age of 12 in Japan, or whatever age it is, wherever you go in, it seems to be quite different. So we have to ask, why is it the age? What happened between then, in this book, where a female at the age of 7 could be betrothed, to today?
Betrothed. Stop saying betrothed.
Whatever. You get what I'm saying?
I know.
But the point is that something happened to change the way we see this idea or this concept of childhood. Now, coincidentally, this is also
so happens.
This also
He's been preparing all evening for this.
Honestly, no wonder he's been backstage.
No, I have to have this conversation so much, so it's just like it's in my head. So,
oh yeah, let me in. I didn't see your message. Go on, carry on.
Right, so this happens to be round about the same time as the Industrial Revolution, and you've got this boom, of the working environment becoming more and more complex, more so than it ever has been before, and there becomes a necessity to have a populace that has a higher level of education, and they start to introduce public schooling, which is compulsory and free, in the early 1900s, round about the same time, where the legal age limit is increased. And coincidentally, the legal age happens to be at the end of that public education system. So the question is it that there's something magic about the age of 16, or is it that the public education system is something that requires them to focus on that, and that marriage or having children is something that takes them away from it? Is it about the fact that they shouldn't be having sex? Because they also teach us in the same schooling system how to have sex. When I was in year 6, they were showing us videos of a weird naked family that walked around the house without any clothes on.
I remember that video.
And I'm not even joking. Like year 6, I remember it. I was in Radcliffe Hall, and they put this video on, and we all had a barrel of laughs because we was like, whose family walks around?
Do you remember that, Hamza? Do you remember that video?
No, before my time.
Well, I mean, you know, I was a kid when that happened, and I lowered my gaze and didn't watch it because
I was not a Muslim. I didn't lower my gaze, and I was laughing my head off. And we were all thinking, what are we watching? In year 7, they were teaching girls how to put condoms on bananas. So they're fully, and keep in mind as well, why is it that you've got primary school and high school? Why are these two different sets of people separated? What is it that makes them distinct? Well, it happens to be the fact that they start puberty around that age, and so they become different. And we have this is a really good book. It's called Teenage by John Savage, and he talks about the invention of the teenager. This concept, this idea of teenager, it didn't exist. People were children, and when they hit puberty, they became adults. And in England, like it was anywhere else, the second you became as a man, if you hit puberty, you were a man. You were taken to the mines. You were made to shovel coal. You went to the factories. You worked. You began to contribute because there was no public education system. You just had to get involved. You couldn't be completely dependent forever, because as a dependent, you're a sponge upon those you are dependent upon. You suck up their resources. And especially around the world for God knows how long, that has always been a difficult environment. And so whenever men could start to contribute, they sent them out to work so they could earn an income, so they could contribute towards their cost of living. And with regards to the girls, it was easier to have someone else look after them. So people were wedded early in their age, because then they could become someone else's responsibility, and someone else has to then fork out to pay for them. So it's very common to get wedded early, not to wait until, and what they're supposed to do, if you've got no public education system and there's nothing else, they're just supposed to play for 16 to 20 years. Just walk around and just eat food and not contribute anything at all. Of course not. It's always been this way. And then what happened was you had the introduction of the automobile, and the automobile completely revolutionized. Honestly, it sounds
long history, bro.
It sounds random, but it makes everything click. The automobile transformed schooling. Schooling used to be small houses, where people lived where their school was. They weren't far away from it, and it was just a tiny building, and the teacher lived on the estate and knew all the kids. And then the automobile made it so that you could have high schools, which were very, very large areas, or huge schooling systems, which contained thousands of people, thousands of children, thousands of students, and they were run by a handful of adults, and they could bring them in from all over the town into this one into this one place. Whereas usually you would just stay in your local area. They came in from all over the place, and this gave rise to subcultures, where the teenagers started to develop their own way of being. And in America in particular, teenagers started getting access to the automobiles themselves, and they could start practicing promiscuity away from their local environment, where they didn't have to worry about the consequences. So they'd start courting, and you get things that, like grease lightning. Grease lightning is you've never seen grease lightning, Ramsey?
Everybody's seen grease lightning, bro.
Are you talking about Greece?
Grease.
I'll be honest, man. I don't know stuff like that.
Go grease lightning.
It's called Grease, not Grease Lightning.
Yeah, well, the song, I'm just
The song's called Grease Lightning.
Whatever, Grease. But Rumsey's how old are you, Rumsey?
21.
Bloody hell. Make me feel old in one word. Or is that 2 words? Does it count as 2 words?
I'm thinking of Grease 2 now, like reproduction. Anyway, carry on.
Right, but the point is, yeah, that the Industrial Revolution completely transformed a lot of things. It allowed for people to become dependent for longer. Yeah, so there's this extension of childhood because people could just they could begin to afford to live with their parents for long periods of time. They had they were sort of forced into it because parents didn't have a choice now. They had to send the kids to this public education. It was compulsory, hence the fact that you don't have a choice. And it was free. So they went there and they weren't able to start contributing. And obviously there was reasons for that because the working environment was more complex. So you needed people with a basic education in mathematics and blah, 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 and whatever else. Because it became a necessity that wasn't present prior to the 1900s to the degree that it was in the 1900s. And so this extended dependence changed the way we see teenagers. But that doesn't mean that they're not adults because we still treat them a certain way. We still teach them how to engage in this behavior, but we say, just do whatever you can to make sure that you don't end up pregnant. Go ahead, engage in sexual activity, but use condoms, use the pill, use contraception. They're fully aware that people at this age are engaging in that activity. It's not like they're not. So what's going on? Like, is it the case that it is in and of itself they shouldn't be doing this? Because if it is, then we should be teaching them abstinence, but we're not doing that. We're teaching them how to engage in these behaviors and how to do it safely. So they're fully aware that these people are engaging in this, that at that age, that's when they start to become attracted to the opposite gender. And they start doing these things. And if you go back in time and you have people hitting the age of puberty, becoming attracted to the opposite gender, wanting to engage in this activity, and they didn't have free compulsory public education, what else are they going to be bloody doing? Especially if adultery or having sex outside of marriage everywhere in the UK, across Europe, was considered completely immoral. Obviously, when they start hitting that age, they're going to be getting married off. They're not going to be like, yeah, go have a boyfriend. So, like, you can't just talk about this in terms of, oh, well, we see it wrong now. Why do we see it wrong? What is it that's changed? It's the fact that we now treat these people as children for longer. And because we do that, we look at them differently. We don't look at them in the same way that people did throughout history. And and to be honest, even now, I've seen 25-year-olds and I look at them and I'm like, you're a kid, I know teenagers that are more adult than you. You get some of these lads that come over from Syria, yeah, and they've had a crappy life and they're young, yeah, and they're not these ones that are pretending to be young. Like my brother, when he was in year 9, yeah, and you can't say, oh, he's some
14 years of age, for those who don't know.
Yeah, 14 years of age. He was man-sized. He used to go and get us alcohol at the shop, and no one would question it because he was a big lad. His balls dropped early, and he was, you know what I mean? Sorry, but he was a big man. He'd hit puberty. Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean exactly?
I'm not going to go into it, but basically, his voice.
Sorry, TikTok. Okay.
his voice deepened, yeah, and what happened was there was him and 2 other lads in his year that were man-sized, and they used to join the rugby team, and they dominated. And the reason was because they didn't have men-sized kids like him in their year in all the other schools. And so when they went to a match, the parents would kick off and say, what are you doing bringing men? This is supposed to be like year 9s. And they had to start bringing identification. And at the end of the year, they had this like victory video because they just smashed it. And there was just nothing any of the other teams could do. And there was a video off my brother with a rugby ball. And he's got like one kid on one leg, another kid on the other leg, 2 kids trying to pull his arms and pull him down. Another guy's like on his back trying to weigh him down. And my brother's just walking with these 5 kids and they can't do nothing. They could do absolutely nothing. And he passed as a man. So, like, it's not it's not that deep. Yeah, well, it is, because I just went on a huge tangent connecting like 50 million different things. But it's something to think about. Yeah, that when you come with these objections, that you need to ask, what is it that changed the way we look at these people? And if you were in that time, would you have looked at them as children, or would you have sent them to the mines to make sure they were contributing to the food bills and to the rent and to the this and to the that? Because I can guarantee you that 99.9999999% of the time, you're going to be sending them off to work and contribute, because there was no public education. And it's this softening of a society because of all this ability for luxury that makes us see people as younger than they are. So when you've got a 25-year-old who lives in his mum's basement, has never really stepped out of his house, hasn't contributed, doesn't work, doesn't pay any bills, he's immature. Yeah, and there's plenty of examples of this. You see them all over the bloody internet, throwing a tantrum because mum didn't make him a bloody sandwich. Like, there are big kids, adult kids that exist now because they're still in a state of dependence where mummy and daddy still provide for them in every way, and they don't have to go to work. They don't have to do anything. And so this immaturity remains in them. Whereas if you look at like my brother, or if you look at someone like, these kids from Syria that come from hard environments, they grow up rapid. They become men quickly. If you want to go visit Syria, go visit Pakistan or Afghanistan, these kids that live in the mountains, and you'll feel like a kid when you stood next to them. Or Palestine, go to Palestine. You'll see teenagers that are more men than you are. So you have to consider this. And then on top of that, you want to go into a deeper level. You need to bring a meta ethics. Yeah, if you're going to say this is wrong or this is immoral or blah 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 blah, like you need to provide definitions of what you consider justice to be, what is good, what is evil. Half of the time you push people on this and it's just like, but it's, it makes me feel funny. It feels wrong. All right, we get it. We all live in the bloody 21st century. And I grew up in the same environment you did. And when I was coming into Islam, I had the same obstacles. I get the feeling, but the question is it justified? How does it make sense holistically? Taking all of these points into consideration. Bish bash bosh, there's my rant over. Sorry.
Beautiful rant. Liked it. Learned so much. I like the idea of what changed from the 19th century.
But it's important because no one ever talks about that bit.
No, it is because no one cared about the age of Aisha before the 19th century.
So you said
it was the going rate.
In essence, what changed wasn't morality and the progress of morality and these debates and arguments. What changed was
capitalism,
working environment, and capitalism and industrialization.
Yeah. A need for a higher educated populace and a necessity in having them enter the education system for a longer period of times. And there was also a massive incentive, capitalistically speaking, to introduce women into the workforce as well, because that added more competition to the labor, which meant that the wages could be reduced. And women were cheaper labor at that time as well.